In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierce the clouds and ambition pulsed through the streets, Emily Harper stood as the cherished only daughter of the Harper family. Her parents, John and Margaret Harper, had built Harper Tech, a thriving tech empire from the ground up. Their wealth and influence were matched only by their love for Emily, but their warnings about Ethan Cole, a charming man from the prestigious Bradley family, were brushed aside. Ethan had pursued Emily for 3 years, his warm smile and gentle words weaving a spell she couldn't resist. Despite her parents' objections, John called him a wolf in sheep's clothing, and Margaret saw cunning in his eyes. Emily married him in a whirlwind ceremony at 22, her heart full of dreams. The wedding was a spectacle at the Plaza Hotel with chandeliers glinting and guests toasting their union. Emily, radiant in white, believed she'd found her soulmate. Ethan's promises of love and loyalty felt like vows etched in stone. But her parents' disapproval cast a shadow. They refused to attend their absence, a wound Emily buried beneath her joy. She convinced herself that Ethan would prove them wrong, that his ambition was noble and that his heart was true. How could she have known the darkness that lay beneath his polished exterior? 2 years later, tragedy struck. John and Margaret died in a car accident on the Long Island Expressway, a sudden collision that left Emily reeling. As their only heir, she inherited Harper Tech, a company valued in the billions, but grief clouded her judgment. Trusting Ethan's business acumen, he'd graduated top of his class from NYU. She handed him the reins. "You're my partner," she told him, her voice trembling with faith. "Please carry this for us." Ethan's eyes softened, his hand squeezing hers. "I'll make you proud, Emily," he said. And so he rose a comet, streaking through the corporate world, his charisma winning over board members and clients alike. But power has a way of revealing truth. As Ethan's influence grew, whispers reached Emily late nights at the office, secretive calls, a coldness in his touch. She dismissed them as stress, her love blinding her to the cracks in their marriage. Then came the night that shattered everything. Emily, clutching her 2-year-old daughter Anna, stood on the roof of a Manhattan skyscraper, the city's lights sprawling below. Ethan and Rachel Evans. Emily's best friend since college faced her, their faces twisted with malice. With her sleek auburn hair and sharp green eyes, Rachel had been Emily's confidant, her sister in all but blood. Now she laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the night. "Emily, you're so naive," Rachel sneered, tears of amusement streaming down her face. "Did you really think Ethan loved you? It's always been me." Ethan stepped forward, his expression devoid of remorse. "Emily, you were a means to an end," he said coldly. "Rachel and I have a son. You and Anna. You're just in the way." Emily's heart stopped, her arms tightening around Anna, who whimpered against her chest. "How could you?" she choked out. "She's your daughter, Ethan, your flesh and blood." He shrugged, unyielding. "The Harper fortune is ours now. You served your purpose." Rachel's laughter grew hysterical. "Your brilliant parents never saw it coming, did they? We didn't plan their accident, but it sure was convenient." The words were a dagger slicing through Emily's soul. Her parents' deaths, the empire she'd handed to Ethan, her trust in Rachel, it was all a lie. Desperation surged through her. She lunged at them, hoping to drag them down, but Ethan and Rachel were faster. They seized her and Anna, their hands cold and unrelenting, and pushed them over the edge. The wind roared as Emily fell Anna's screams, piercing her heart, the city lights blurring into a kaleidoscope of betrayal. Her last thought was of her daughter stolen from her by the two people she loved most. As darkness claimed her, a faint light flickered, warm and otherworldly, whispering of second chances. Emily didn't understand it then, but it was the spark that would change everything. Her life, her love, her trust, they had been shattered. But fate wasn't done with Emily Harper. The stage was set for her to rise not as a victim, but as a force of retribution ready to make Ethan and Rachel pay for their sins. Emily Harper's world dissolved into darkness as she plummeted from the Manhattan skyscraper, her daughter Anna's screams echoing in her ears. The betrayal by her husband Ethan Cole and her best friend Rachel Evans burned hotter than the wind, tearing at her skin. But as her consciousness faded, a warm golden light enveloped her, pulsing like a heartbeat. Whispers soft and ancient spoke of justice, of a chance to right the wrongs. Was it fate, a divine gift? Emily didn't know, but the light felt like a promise pulling her from death's grasp. Her eyes snapped open. The world was no longer a blur of city lights and terror. She was lying on the plush couch of her Upper East Side penthouse, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her heart pounded, her body trembling with the phantom sensation of falling. Her hands clutched her stomach where a faint flutter reminded her of the life within. She was 3 months along, just as she had been 3 years ago. The realization hit like a thunderbolt. She had been reborn, returning to the day she learned of her pregnancy with Anna. Ethan's voice broke through her daze. Emily, we're having a baby. I'm going to be a dad. He knelt beside her holding a pregnancy test, his blue eyes brimming with tears. His dark hair fell across his forehead, and his smile radiated joy. But now Emily saw the calculated glint beneath his warmth, the rehearsed quiver in his voice. How had she missed it before she'd melted at his excitement in her first life, blind to his ambition? Now the memory of his confession on that rooftop. "You were never part of the picture," ignited a fire in her chest. Disgust surged through her, raw and unstoppable. Her hand lashed out, slapping Ethan hard across the face. The crack echoed in the quiet penthouse, and Ethan stumbled back, clutching his cheek, which bloomed red and swollen. "Emily, what's wrong with you?" he stammered, eyes wide with shock. Emily's breath hitched, her mind racing. She couldn't reveal her knowledge, not yet. She had to play the part just as he did. "Sorry," she said, forcing her voice to tremble. "It's the hormones. Pregnancy's making me a mess." She sat up, smoothing her blouse, and added, "I didn't mean to hit you." Ethan's expression flickered, a shadow of suspicion crossing his face before melting into a gentle smile. "It's okay, Em. If it makes you feel better, I can take a little pain." He reached for her hand, his touch warm but hollow. Emily's skin crawled, but she let him hold it, her mind replaying the rooftop scene, Rachel's cruel laughter, Anna's tiny body in her arms. The pain was a living thing clawing at her heart. She saw Anna's face, her daughter's bright eyes extinguished by Ethan's betrayal. The sadness was unbearable, but it fueled her. She wouldn't let them win again. "I need some air," Emily said, pulling her hand free and standing. Ethan rose too, and his concern was a perfect mask. "Emily, you're pregnant now. You should rest. Don't stress yourself out." His voice was smooth and practiced, but Emily heard the undercurrent of control. He wanted her docile out of the way so that he could sink his claws into Harper Tech. In her past life, she'd have agreed, dazzled by his care. Now she saw the wolf her parents had warned her about, his ambition cloaked in love. "I'm fine," she said, her tone clipped but calm. "I need a moment." She walked to the window, gazing at the Manhattan skyline, its towering buildings a reminder of the empire her parents had built and the one Ethan and Rachel had stolen. Her reflection stared back, her brown eyes haunted but resolute. The golden light from her fall lingered in her memory, a beacon of purpose. Was it God fate? Some cosmic force granted her this chance? She didn't care. It had given her power, a second life to protect Anna and destroy those who'd taken everything. Emily turned back to Ethan, who watched her with curiosity and caution. She said, "I'm so happy about the baby," forcing a smile. "But it's overwhelming, I need to process this." Ethan nodded, his face softening, but Emily caught the flicker of calculation in his eyes. He thought he still had her fooled. Good, let him believe that. She would use his arrogance against him just as he'd used her trust. As Ethan moved to the kitchen, humming about making dinner, Emily's mind raced. She had 3 years to rewrite her fate, to save her parents, her daughter, her legacy. But the weight of her past mistakes pressed down her defiance of her parents, her blind love for Ethan, her trust in Rachel's false friendship. The guilt was a sharp blade cutting deeper as she realized how her choices had led to their deaths. Yet within that pain, a spark of resolve grew. She wasn't the naive girl anymore. She was a mother, a survivor, reborn with a purpose. Emily touched her stomach, whispering to Anna, "I won't let them hurt you again." The vow anchored her, steadying her trembling hands. Ethan's voice called from the kitchen, "Steak tonight, Em, your favorite." She nodded, her lips curving into a smile, hiding her hatred. This was her second chance, and she would play the game better than Ethan could. The stage was set, and the wolf in sheep's clothing had no idea the hunter was awake. Emily Harper stood in her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering backdrop through the expansive windows. The memory of her fall from the skyscraper, her daughter Anna's screams still haunted her, but the golden light of her rebirth fueled her resolve. Ethan Cole. Her husband knelt beside her, his hand warm on hers, his voice dripping with rehearsed concern. "Emily, you're pregnant now," he said, his blue eyes fixed on her. "You should stay home and rest. Let me take over at Harper Tech for a while. I'll worry if you push yourself too hard." Emily had melted at those words in her first life, seeing only love in his gaze. Now she saw the truth, a wolf cloaked in charm, his ambition sharp as a blade. Ethan's plea was no act of care. It was a calculated move to seize her family's tech empire, just as he had done before, leading to her parents' deaths and her own murder. Her stomach churned with disgust, but she kept her face neutral, her brown eyes steady. "That's not a good idea, Ethan," she replied, pulling her hand free. "You've always wanted to prove yourself on your own merits, to show my parents you're more than their doubts. Taking my place now would make your efforts look like a sham." Ethan's smile faltered, a flicker of darkness crossing his face. He sat beside her on the couch, his arm sliding around her shoulders, his voice softening to a practiced warmth. "Emily, we've been married for 2 years. I've tried hard to win over your parents, but they've never trusted me. Now that you're pregnant, it's the perfect time for me to step up, join Harper Tech, and carry the load. I want to prove I'm worthy for you and our baby." His words were a masterclass in manipulation, each syllable crafted to tug at her heart. She'd fallen for it in her past life, begging her parents to let Ethan take her role, only to watch him betray them all. Now Emily saw the insecurity in his eyes, the cunning beneath his plea. Her parents, John and Margaret Harper, had always seen it his wolf in sheep's clothing, as John had warned. Their refusal to accept Ethan wasn't prejudice, but instinct honed by years of building Harper Tech from a startup to a billion-dollar empire. Emily's chest tightened with guilt. She'd defied them, stolen the household records to marry Ethan behind their backs, and used her pregnancy to force them to let him into the company. Their reluctant agreement, sealed with trembling hands and heart medication, had been her doing. She'd invited the wolf into their home, paving the way for their deaths in that Long Island Expressway crash. The weight of her past mistakes pressed down a sharp ache in her soul. She'd been a fool, dazzled by Ethan's charm and blind to his greed, but no more. The golden light that brought her back wasn't just a second chance, it was a call to protect her family, her daughter, her legacy. She met Ethan's gaze, her voice steady but laced with challenge. "If you join Harper Tech now, it'll look like you're riding my family's coattails. You said you wanted to earn your place, not inherit it. Are you saying you've changed your mind?" Ethan paused, his jaw tightening, but he recovered quickly, his smile returning like a mask. "Of course not, Em. I want to support you. You're carrying our child. Let me help." His insistence was a red flag, his ambition leaking through the cracks of his facade. Emily's mind raced, plotting her next move. She couldn't confront him outright, not yet. She needed time to strategize to shield her parents and Anna from his schemes. "I appreciate that," she said, forcing a soft smile. "But I'm not stepping away. Harper Tech is my responsibility. Let's focus on the baby for now, okay?" Ethan nodded, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of frustration. He stood brushing his dark hair and headed to the kitchen. "I'll make dinner." "Steak like always," he called, his tone light but strained. Emily watched him go, her heart pounding with hatred and determination. She touched her stomach, whispering to Anna, "I'll keep you safe this time." The vow anchored her, but a shadow of doubt crept in. Could she outmaneuver Ethan without losing herself? The path to revenge felt righteous, but it was a dark road that might harden her heart. She moved to the window, the city's pulse a reminder of what was at stake. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind, John's stern warnings, Margaret's quiet concern. They'd seen Ethan for what he was, and she'd ignored them, choosing love over wisdom. The car accident that took them hadn't been Ethan's doing. She now knew a tragic collision with a drunk driver, not sabotage, but his betrayal had capitalized on it, stealing their legacy. Emily's hands clenched into fists. She wouldn't let him win again. But first, she needed to reconnect with her parents, to rebuild the trust she'd broken. "I will stay with Mom and Dad for a few days," she called to Ethan, her voice firm. Surprise flickering across his face, he poked his head out from the kitchen. "Long Island." "Sure, Em. I'll drive you after dinner." His cheerfulness was too perfect, too practiced. Emily nodded, her mind already elsewhere. She needed her parents' wisdom, their strength, and she needed a plan that would unravel Ethan's ambitions and protect her daughter. The game had begun, and Emily Harper was playing to win this time. Emily Harper stood in her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering reminder of the empire she was fighting to protect. The golden light of her rebirth still lingered in her mind, a divine spark urging her to right the wrongs of her past life. Her husband, Ethan Cole, had revealed his true colors, a wolf plotting to seize Harper Tech with her supposed best friend, Rachel Evans. The memory of their betrayal pushing Emily and her daughter Anna off a skyscraper fueled her resolve. She'd vowed to protect her unborn child and her family's legacy, and now the next piece of her plan was knocking at her door. The doorbell chimed, a sharp sound cutting through the penthouse's quiet. Emily opened the door to find Rachel Evans, her auburn hair cascading over a red dress that hugged her curves, her green eyes sparkling with feigned warmth. Emily. "I've missed you so much," Rachel squealed, arms wide for a hug. In her first life, Emily had trusted Rachel, completely sharing secrets and dreams during their college days at NYU. Rachel had been her roommate, her confidant, a sister in all but blood. But now Emily knew the truth. Rachel's sweetness was a mask, her heart venomous. The image of Rachel's cruel laughter on that rooftop mocking Emily's naivety ignited a fire in her chest. Fueled by rage, Emily shoved Rachel back, her hand flying out in a sharp slap across Rachel's cheek. The crack echoed, Rachel's eyes widening in shock as she clutched her reddened face. "Emily, what the hell?" she gasped, her voice trembling. Emily's heart pounded, but she couldn't reveal her knowledge. She forced a shaky smile, her voice soft but edged. "Sorry, Rachel. I didn't realize it was you. The pregnancy hormones are making me jumpy. I thought someone was rushing me." Rachel's guarded expression softened, but her eyes darted to Ethan, who emerged from the kitchen, concern etched on his face. "Emily, you okay? Is it the baby?" Ethan asked, his tone a perfect blend of worry and warmth. Emily noted their matching, swollen cheeks, hers from her slap, his from earlier, and felt a grim satisfaction. They were a pair united in deceit. "I'm fine," she said, her gaze flicking between them. Then pointedly she added, "But Rachel, what did you mean by 'don't believe it, none of it's true'?" Rachel's eyes shot to Ethan, a fierce glare accusing him of a slip. "Nothing," she said flatly. "Just surprised, that's all." "Congrats on the baby, you two." Emily nodded, her smile cold. "Thanks." The air crackled with tension, but Emily's mind was elsewhere, piecing together the puzzle of their betrayal. In her past life, she'd learned too late that Ethan and Rachel's affair began in high school, in a small Pennsylvania town where poverty shaped Rachel's hunger for wealth. Rachel's family had struggled. Her father was a factory worker, and her mother was absent. At NYU, Rachel had latched onto Emily after visiting her family's opulent Long Island estate, her envy masked by charm. She'd orchestrated accidental meetings between Emily and Ethan, her high school sweetheart, paving the way for their marriage and her own access to the Harper fortune. Emily's trust had been her downfall. Now Emily saw Rachel's calculated moves, the flirtatious smile, the plunging neckline designed to distract. Rachel said, "I'm staying in Manhattan for a while," her voice syrupy. "Can I crash here, Em?" Like old times. In her first life, Emily would have welcomed her without question. Now she saw an opportunity. Letting Rachel stay would keep her close. Her greed was a weapon Emily could wield. Emily said, her tone warm but eyes cold. "This is your home too. Ethan, you're okay with that?" She turned to him, her smile daring him to object. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded, his cheerfulness strained. "Sure, Em. Whatever makes you happy." His agreement was a lie. Emily knew he'd stopped Rachel from staying in her past life to hide their affair. Rachel beamed, oblivious to the trap. "You're the best, Em," she said, her hug lingering too long. Emily fought the nausea rising in her throat. Rachel's betrayal, her role in Anna's death, cut deep, but Emily's guilt was sharper. She'd trusted Rachel, ignored her parents' warnings, and paid the ultimate price. Now she wrestled with the cost of her plan. Could she outplay Rachel without becoming as ruthless? The question gnawed at her, but Anna's memory steeled her resolve. "I'm heading to my parents' place tomorrow," Emily said casually, planting the seed. "You two can hold down the fort." Rachel's eyes flickered with interest, and Ethan's smile was too quick. They thought they had her fooled. Let them. Emily's plan was taking shape. She'd let Rachel's greed and Ethan's ambition lead them to ruin, just as they'd planned for her. Emily Harper stood in her Upper East Side penthouse, the weight of her reborn purpose pressing against her heart. The golden light that had brought her back 3 years ago, sparing her from the fall that killed her and her daughter Anna, burned in her memory like a vow. Ethan Cole, her husband, and Rachel Evans, her supposed best friend, had betrayed her, plotting to seize Harper Tech and murder her family. With Rachel installed in her home as a pawn in her plan, Emily needed her strongest allies, her parents John and Margaret Harper, She had to mend the bonds she'd broken in her past life and arm herself for the battle ahead. "I'm staying with Mom and Dad for a few days," Emily told Ethan, her voice steady as she packed a small bag. He glanced up from the kitchen, his dark hair falling over his brow, his smile too perfect. "Long Island." "I'll drive you after dinner, Em," he said, his cheer masking the ambition she now saw clearly. Rachel, lounging on the couch in her red dress, perked up her green eyes, gleaming with opportunity. Emily ignored her mind already on her parents' estate where she could find solace and strength. "I'll have Uncle Jim pick me up," she said, referencing the family driver who'd been like kin since her childhood. The drive to Long Island was quiet, and the familiar hum of Uncle Jim's black Mercedes was comforting. With his graying hair and steady hands, Jim had driven Emily since kindergarten, his quiet loyalty a constant in her life. "You okay, kid?" he asked, his voice gruff but warm. Emily met his eyes in the rearview mirror, seeing a flicker of suspicion about Ethan. "I will be," she said softly, her trust in Jim deepening. He'd sensed Ethan's deceit long before she had a fact she'd ignored in her first life. Now she'd lean on his instincts. At the Harper estate, a sprawling mansion nestled among oaks, Emily's mother, Margaret, greeted her with a lavender hug. "It's been too long," Margaret said, her eyes crinkling with warmth. John, her father, joined them, his stern face softening. Over dinner, the dining room glowed with candlelight, the table laden with Margaret's home-cooked favorites, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and apple pie. Laughter filled the air, a harmony Emily hadn't felt since marrying Ethan. In her past life, his presence had strained her family ties. Her visits to Long Island were rare to avoid upsetting him. Now she realized how much she'd missed this, her parents' love, their shared history building Harper Tech from a garage startup to a tech giant. As they ate, Emily's heart ached with guilt. She'd defied her parents marrying Ethan behind their backs, stealing records to make it legal. Their warnings, John's wolf in sheep's clothing, Margaret's quiet fears, had been proper. Her choices had led to their deaths in a drunk driving accident, a tragedy Ethan exploited to seize their empire. The pain of losing them, of Anna's screams as they fell, threatened to overwhelm her. But the Golden Light's promise held her steady. She couldn't change the past, but she could protect their future. After dinner, in the quiet of the study, Emily took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant," she said, her voice trembling. Their faces lit up, but concern followed. "There's more," she continued, her hands shaking. She told them everything: her first life, Ethan and Rachel's betrayal, the rooftop murder, her rebirth. The words poured out raw and desperate. John's jaw tightened. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but they believed her. Their faith in fate, honed by years navigating the cutthroat tech world, anchored them. "We always knew Ethan was trouble," John said, his voice gruff. "We should have fought harder to stop you." Margaret squeezed Emily's hand. "We're here now, sweetheart. What do you need?" Emily's throat tightened, tears spilling. "I want revenge," she admitted, "but I'm afraid of what it'll make me. Can I be ruthless and still be me?" Margaret's gaze was steady. "You're our daughter. You're strong enough to do what's right and stay whole." John nodded. "We'll build Ethan up, let him think he's won, then crush him. Rachel, too." Emily's resolve hardened, but the moral weight lingered. To execute her plan, she needed evidence. "Uncle Jim," she said later, handing him a package of hidden cameras. "Install these in the penthouse. I need to know what they're doing." Jim's faint smile, a rare crack in his stoic facade, told her he'd long suspected Ethan's deceit. "Consider it done," he said, his loyalty a quiet strength. As Jim drove her back to the city the next day, Emily watched the Long Island horizon, Anna's memory fueling her. She'd rebuild her family, protect her daughter, and make her enemies pay, even if it meant dancing with darkness. Emily Harper stood in the sleek boardroom of Harper Tech's Manhattan headquarters, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop through the glass walls. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had pulled her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband Ethan Cole and her best friend Rachel Evans, burned in her resolve. She'd reconnected with her parents John and Margaret Harper and enlisted their support to dismantle Ethan's ambitions. With hidden cameras now installed in her Upper East Side penthouse courtesy of Uncle Jim, Emily was ready to orchestrate Ethan's rise and his inevitable fall. The plan began at her parents' Long Island estate, where John and Margaret agreed to let Ethan join Harper Tech. "We'll give him enough rope to hang himself," John had said, his stern face unyielding. Margaret nodded, her eyes sharp with determination. "He'll think he's winning, but we'll be watching." Emily felt a pang of guilt. Her past trust in Ethan had nearly destroyed their legacy, but their faith in her steadied her. She wrestled with the darkness of her plan. Manipulating Ethan meant playing his game, risking the warmth of the woman she'd been. Yet Anna's memory, her daughter lost to Ethan's betrayal, anchored her purpose. In Manhattan, Emily led Ethan into the chairman's office where John greeted him with a warmth that belied his suspicion. "Ethan, with Emily expecting your family now," John said, his voice steady. "Margaret and I want to retire someday and enjoy our grandkids. Prove yourself, and Harper Tech could be yours to lead." Ethan's blue eyes lit up a kaleidoscope of ambition and triumph flickering across his face. He glanced at Emily, seeking confirmation, and she offered a reassuring nod, her smile masking her intent. "You've got this, Ethan," she said, her tone soft but calculated. Emily handed Ethan a nameplate in the boardroom, Ethan Cole, general manager. "It's official," she said, watching his grin widen. "You're in charge of operations now. Show Mom and Dad what you can do." Ethan's chest puffed out, his confidence bordering on arrogance. "I won't let you down, Em," he said, his hand reaching for hers. She sidestepped, patting his shoulder instead. "Just focus on results," she replied, her voice cool. The board, a group of seasoned veterans loyal to the Harpers, watched silently, their eyes sharp. John briefed them, "Give Ethan tasks but never trust them." Ethan dove into his role, unaware he was stepping into a trap. The board assigned him grueling menial tasks, inventory audits, vendor disputes, even scheduling janitorial shifts under the guise of building experience. Emily watched via reports from her father's trusted deputy, Clara Voss, a no-nonsense executive who'd helped build Harper Tech. "He's eager, I'll give him that," Clara told Emily over coffee, her gray eyes glinting. "But he's out of his depth. He doesn't see the leash." Emily nodded, grateful for Clara's loyalty. She'd ignored such allies in her first life, dazzled by Ethan's charm. Now she leaned on them. Weeks passed and Ethan's frustration grew. He cornered Emily in their penthouse, his tie loosened, his face flushed. "Em is Harper Tech, this short-staffed. I'm the general manager, but I'm counting office supplies." His voice was sharp, his ambition cracking through his facade. Emily feigned sympathy, her heart cold. "Dad sees you as a successor," she said, her smile encouraging. "They want you to know every detail of the business. It's how they built it. If it's too much, I can ask them to ease up." Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he shook his head. "No, I'm not afraid of work. I need a real project, something to prove myself." Emily seized the moment. "Show them what you're capable of, Ethan. They'll notice." Her words were a spark igniting his ego. He nodded, determination hardening his features, and returned to his desk, diving into spreadsheets with renewed vigor. Emily watched, her mind racing. Ethan's ambition was his weakness. He'd push himself into the spotlight, unaware the stage was rigged. But doubt crept in. Was she becoming as manipulative as he was? The thought chilled her, but Anna's face, her daughter's bright eyes extinguished. In her past life, pushed it aside. She'd do whatever it took to protect her. As Ethan worked late, Emily checked the surveillance app on her phone, the hidden cameras capturing his every move. He was already scheming, making calls to allies outside the company, his voice low and urgent. Rachel's presence in the penthouse, lounging in Emily's space, fueled her resolve. The trap was set, and Ethan was walking right into it, his false rise, a prelude to his ruin. Emily Harper sat in her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a silent witness to her transformation. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had pulled her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband, Ethan Cole, and her best friend, Rachel Evans, fueled her resolve. With Ethan ensnared in Harper Tech's trap as general manager, Emily now turned her attention to Rachel, who lounged in her home, a venomous guest cloaked in false friendship. The memory of Rachel's laughter on that skyscraper as she and Ethan pushed Emily and her daughter Anna to their deaths burned in her heart. But Emily was no longer the naive fool. She was a hunter, and Rachel was her prey. Rachel sprawled on the couch wearing Emily's silk robe, sipping coffee as if she owned the place. Her auburn hair gleamed, her green eyes scanning the penthouse with a hunger from her impoverished Pennsylvania childhood. In her first life, Emily had shared everything with Rachel, clothes secrets, dreams blinded by her charm. Now she saw the greed beneath the same greed that had driven Rachel to betray her for Harper's wealth. Emily's surveillance cameras installed by Uncle Jim had captured Rachel's late-night whispers with Ethan, their affair bare. "We need to move faster," Ethan, Rachel had hissed, revealing her pregnancy. "Emily's too trusting. We can take it all." The audacity of Rachel's overstep, wearing her robe, plotting in her home, ignited Emily's fury. She crossed the room, her voice sharp. "Rachel, that's my robe. Taking without asking is stealing. Didn't realize you were so comfortable helping yourself." Rachel's smile faltered, her cheeks flushing. Oh, I didn't bring enough clothes. You don't mind, do you? Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were guarded. Emily's lips curled into a cold smile. I do mind. I've always treated you like a sister better than myself. But I don't like people touching my things. Prove you're different. Rachel's expression twisted with embarrassment, but she nodded, slipping off the robe. Emily pressed further, her voice casual but cutting. I'm hungry, Rachel. Make dinner. Home cooked is better for the baby. Rachel frowned, her discomfort palpable. Can't we order takeout? I'm not much of a cook. Emily's smile didn't waver. Nonsense. You've always been capable. Don't be modest. Rachel sulked off to the kitchen, her resentment clear. Watching her struggle with pots and pans, Emily felt a thrill of satisfaction. Playing the villain was intoxicating, but a shadow of doubt crept in. Was she becoming as cruel as Rachel Anna's memory? Her daughter's lost laughter silenced the doubt. This was justice. Later, Emily checked the surveillance feed on her phone. Rachel and Ethan huddled in the guest room, their voices low. She's changed, Rachel whispered, her tone uneasy. She's watching us. Ethan's jaw tightened. It's the pregnancy. She'll calm down. We need to get her out of the way. Rachel's eyes gleamed. I'm pregnant, Ethan. We can't wait. Harper Tech, the money, it's ours if we play this right. Emily's heart clenched. In her past life, Rachel's pregnancy had been a secret until the rooftop, a dagger in her trust. Now it was a weapon Emily could use. She devised her next move. Rachel. I'm thinking of staying with my parents for a bit, Emily said the next morning, her tone light. But you should feel at home here. Or, she paused, her eyes glinting. How about the Hamptons villa? It's fully furnished, perfect for resting during my pregnancy. You could stay there. Rachel's eyes widened, her greed betraying her. The Hamptons villa in the exclusive Moonview Hills symbolized wealth, a magnet for someone like Rachel who'd grown up with nothing. That's too generous, Rachel said, her voice dripping with false modesty. Are you sure? Absolutely, Emily replied, her smile warm but calculated. Ethan, you're okay with Rachel staying there, right? Ethan nodded, his expression strained. He knew Rachel's presence in the penthouse risked exposure, but the villa offered a new stage for their schemes. Emily's plan was simple. Rachel's greed would push her to overreach, drawing her into a trap. The villa, wired with cameras, would capture every move. But as Emily packed for Long Island, a question gnawed at her. Was this thrill of control worth the cost to her soul? She'd once been kind, trusting. Now she was a strategist, her heart hardening with each step. As Uncle Jim's Mercedes pulled up to take her to her parents, Emily touched her stomach, whispering to Anna, I'm doing this for you. Rachel's betrayal, Ethan's ambition, they'd pay for what they'd done. But Emily vowed to hold on to her humanity even as she danced with darkness. Emily Harper stood in her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering testament to the empire she was fighting to protect. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had thrust her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband, Ethan Cole, and her best friend, Rachel Evans, fueled her resolve. With Rachel ensconced in the Hamptons villa, her greed primed to lead her astray, and Ethan trapped in Harper Tech's menial tasks, Emily was ready to escalate her plan. The memory of Anna's screams as Ethan and Rachel pushed them off a skyscraper in her past life steeled her heart. But the thrill of manipulation weighed on her. Could she outwit them without losing herself? Ethan's frustration was palpable. He'd expected power as general manager, but Harper Tech's board, led by her parents' loyal deputy Clara Voss, buried him in grunt work. Emily watched him unravel his tie, loosened his blue eyes dull with exhaustion. One evening, he stormed into the penthouse, his voice sharp. Emily, I'm drowning in paperwork. No projects, no respect. Your parents don't trust me. Emily feigned concern, her brown eyes soft. They're testing you, Ethan. Show them your worth and they'll give you something big. Her words were a spark to his ambition, but inside she wrestled with the darkness of her deception. Anna's memory kept her focused, but the line between justice and cruelty blurred. To push Ethan further, Emily needed funds out of his reach. When he asked for money to grease corporate wheels, she refused. She said, You've had plenty from my parents over the years. Explain to them where it went. Ethan's face darkened, but he retreated, turning to Rachel. The surveillance cameras in the Hamptons villa captured their tense exchange. I gave you everything I had. Rachel hissed, her auburn hair wild, her green eyes flashing. You'd better make this work, Ethan. The sacrifice of her savings, a painful blow to her greedy heart, fueled Ethan's desperation. Emily smiled grimly, knowing his overreach was near. She saw her chance in Zenith Corp, a tech giant led by Evan Zane, whose recent return from London had sparked a major contract bid. Zenith's project could cement your place at Harper Tech, Emily told Ethan over dinner, her voice casual but calculated. It's a long shot, Evan's strict, secretive, but I know someone who might help. Ethan leaned forward, his ambition reignited. Who? Emily paused, her smile subtle. Zach Zane, Evan's half-brother, your old college rival from NYU. Ethan's jaw tightened, memories of their feud flashing in his eyes. In their first year, Zach had called Ethan a hypocrite with a beast's heart, sparking a public fistfight. Zach had even warned Emily about Ethan before graduation, a warning she'd dismissed, dazzled by Ethan's charm. You two never got along, Emily continued, her tone troubled. It's a bad idea. Forget I mentioned it. Ethan's pride bristled, but his greed won out. No, I can handle Zach, he said, his voice firm. Emily hid her satisfaction. She knew Ethan's ego would drive him to swallow his pride for a shot at glory. Zach was the perfect pawn, a playboy with a knack for chaos. Raised in secrecy by the Zane family, he held sway with Evan, but his disdain for Ethan would make any alliance costly. Emily's plan was simple: push Ethan to grovel, setting the stage for humiliation. Days later, Clara Voss reported Ethan's moves. He's been hounding Zach, she said, her gray eyes glinting with amusement. Showed up at his Soho loft begging for a meeting? Emily nodded, grateful for Clara's sharp insight. In her first life, she'd overlooked allies like Clara, a tech veteran who'd mentored her parents. Now Clara's loyalty was a lifeline. Ethan's persistence paid off. Zach agreed to talk, but only if Ethan organized a college reunion, a public stage for their old drama. Emily's heart raced with anticipation. Ethan's ambition was blinding him, just as she'd planned. But doubt lingered. Was she orchestrating justice or revenge? The thrill of control was seductive, but Anna's face, her daughter's lost future, kept her grounded. As Ethan planned the reunion, Emily checked the penthouse cameras. Lounging in the Hamptons, Rachel was already scheming, and her calls to Ethan were urgent. Get that contract or we're nothing, she snapped. Emily's resolve hardened. Ethan's desperate gamble was her opportunity. She'd let him climb only to watch him fall. Emily Harper stood in the shadows of her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering reminder of the empire she was reclaiming. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had thrust her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband, Ethan Cole, and her best friend, Rachel Evans, burned fiercely in her heart. With Ethan ensnared as Harper Tech's general manager, buried in menial tasks, and Rachel lured to the Hamptons villa by her greed, Emily's plan was nearing its climax. The memory of her daughter Anna's screams as Ethan and Rachel pushed them off a skyscraper in her past life fueled her resolve. But the thrill of her schemes weighed on her soul. Could she destroy them without losing herself? Ethan had taken the bait, organizing a college reunion to appease Zach Zane, his NYU rival, and Evan Zane's half-brother, hoping to secure a foothold in Zenith Corp's lucrative contract. The reunion at a trendy Soho loft was a spectacle of old grudges and forced smiles. Emily, monitoring via a hidden mic, arranged by Clara Voss, Harper Tech's sharp-witted deputy, listened as Ethan groveled. Zach. I was immature back then, Ethan said, his voice strained, clutching a glass of wine. Let's put the past behind us. Zach's response was a cold snort, his contempt palpable. The crowd, buzzing with alcohol and gossip, lapped up the drama, their whispers recalling Ethan's college fistfight with Zach over his hypocritical heart. Emily's lips curled into a smile. She wasn't there, but the humiliation was delicious. The real blow came days later at Harper Tech's Manhattan headquarters. The boardroom filled with executives, and Clara's steely gaze hummed with anticipation as Ethan presented his strategy for the Zenith contract. His confidence was palpable, bolstered by Zach's reluctant agreement to connect him with Evan. But as the projection screen lit up, the slides flickered, replaced by a grainy video. Gasps filled the room as Ethan and Rachel appeared, their intimate moments in the Hamptons villa exposed for all to see. Ethan's face drained of color. Please turn it off, he screamed, lunging for the controls, his hands trembling as he slammed the power button. But it was too late. The footage spread online like wildfire, headlined Harper Tech's son-in-law caught in scandal with wife's best friend. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Clara's eyes met Emily's, a silent nod, confirming her role in leaking the video captured by the villa's hidden cameras. Ethan stormed out, his career in ruins. By evening, John Harper's stern face ousted Ethan from Harper Tech. "You've disgraced our family," John said, his voice cutting. Emily, summoned to the hospital for pregnancy complications to maintain her cover, lay in a private room, her lips pale but her heart racing with triumph. Ethan burst in his eyes, wild. "You did this, Emily? You set me up!" he roared, his composure shattered. Emily's voice was weak but steady, her brown eyes meeting his. "Business is war, Ethan. You think I'd sabotage my own company to take you down? The Zenith contract is huge. Competitors are circling. You have no idea who might have planted that camera." Her words, laced with feigned innocence, struck a nerve. Ethan's jaw clenched, fear and guilt warring in his expression. She slid a document across the bedside table, a prenup drafted by her lawyer, stating that infidelity would cost Ethan custody of their child and all assets. "Take a look," she said softly. Ethan skimmed it, his face twisting with rage. "You didn't cheat," he snapped, slamming the paper down. "Then why are you so upset?" Emily asked, her tone calm. She produced another document, a divorce agreement, unless you lied about Rachel being just a friend. "Pick one, Ethan. Sign the prenup and stay, or take the divorce and leave with nothing." His eyes burned with disbelief. "You've changed, Emily. When did you get so ruthless?" The accusation stung, echoing her own fears. She'd once been kind, trusting, but their betrayal had forged her into something more complex. Anna's memory, her daughter's lost future, kept her steady. "Call Rachel," she said, her voice cold. "Tell her to be out of the villa by tonight. My security team's on the way." Ethan's hands trembled, but he stormed out, his world crumbling. Emily closed her eyes, a tear escaping. The victory was hers, but the cost was heavy. Clara's voice broke her thoughts, soft but firm. "You did what you had to, Emily. Your parents are proud." Clara, who'd mentored John and Margaret, had become Emily's ally, her loyalty a lifeline. Emily nodded, her resolve firm. Ethan's public humiliation was complete, but Rachel's fall was next. The trap was closing, and Emily would see it through, even if it meant dancing with darkness. Emily Harper lay in a private hospital room in Manhattan, the sterile white walls a stark contrast to the fire in her heart. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had pulled her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband Ethan Cole and her best friend Rachel Evans, burned with purpose. Ethan's public humiliation, a leaked video of his affair with Rachel at a Harper Tech board meeting, had cost him his position and reputation. Emily's plan was now closing in on Rachel, whose greed had led her to the Hamptons villa, which was wired with cameras to capture her schemes. The memory of Anna, her daughter, killed by their betrayal in her past life, kept Emily focused, but the weight of her ruthlessness gnawed at her. Could she destroy them without losing her soul? Rachel, sensing Ethan's fall, had pivoted. The Hamptons villa in Moonview Hills, a haven of wealth, had drawn her like a moth to a flame. Emily had warned her to keep a low profile among the elite neighbors, knowing Rachel's hunger, born of her impoverished Pennsylvania childhood, would drive her to defy it. The cameras confirmed Emily's suspicions. Rachel targeted Zach Zane, Evan Zane's half-brother, a wealthy man with a taste for chaos. Late-night footage showed Rachel in a designer gown, her auburn hair cascading as she flirted with Zach at a villa party, her green eyes calculating. "I terminated the pregnancy," she'd whispered to him, her voice sultry. "I want a fresh start with you." Emily's heart clenched. Rachel's betrayal of Ethan mirrored her past betrayal of Emily, a cycle of greed. Ethan, ousted from Harper Tech, spiraled into desperation. He bombarded Emily with calls, his texts frantic. "Where's Rachel? What did you do?" Emily ignored him, her hospital stay a cover to maintain her innocence. She'd presented Ethan with a prenup and divorce agreement, forcing him to choose between loyalty and ruin. He'd signed the divorce papers, relinquishing custody and assets, his love for Rachel outweighing his pride. Now, Emily arranged a meeting at a private restaurant in Boston, a secluded courtyard with lush gardens perfect for the drama she'd orchestrated. "Meet me at 7 p.m., she texted Ethan, her tone neutral. "I'll tell you where Rachel is." At the restaurant, Emily sat with her lawyer, Clara Voss's recommended counsel, and 2 bodyguards, her brown eyes calm behind sunglasses. Ethan arrived, a shadow of his former self, greasy hair, dark circles under his eyes, his once charming face haggard. "Are you threatening me, Emily?" he growled, his voice raw. "Not at all," she replied, her tone cool. "Sign these final papers and I'll give you Rachel's location." The papers, an addendum to the divorce, ensured Ethan left with nothing. His hands trembled as he signed his love for Rachel, blinding him. "You're happy now," he snapped. "Tell me where she is." "Relax," Emily said, sliding her sunglasses off. "She's fine. You'll see her in 30 minutes, right here." She left, leaving a bodyguard to record the reunion. Through the live feed, Emily watched Ethan pace the courtyard, his eyes locked on the entrance. Rachel entered radiant in a custom Versace dress, diamonds sparkling at her throat, clinging to Zach Zane's arm. Zach, in a tailored suit, exuded reckless charm. Ethan's face twisted, a lion ready to pounce. "Rachel, are you okay? Who's this guy?" he roared, lunging toward her. Rachel's scalp tingled with panic. She'd moved to Boston next to Zach's penthouse, planning to phase Ethan out after his scandal. "I'm fine," she stammered, backing behind Zach. "Go, Ethan. I'll explain later." Zach's eyes narrowed, recognizing Ethan from the viral video. "You're the Harper Tech fool," he sneered. "Caught with her, huh?" Ethan's voice broke. "Rachel, you don't love me anymore. I divorced Emily for you. We can raise our baby together." Rachel's face paled. "Zach, it's not true," she cried. "I love you. I ended the pregnancy for you." Zach's chest heaved with rage. "You lied to me," he growled, slapping Rachel hard across the face. She crumpled, tears streaming, pleading, "Don't leave me!" Ethan lunged, but Zach's bodyguards tackled him, dragging him out. Emily, watching from her phone, felt a grim satisfaction. Rachel's betrayal of Ethan was poetic justice, but the cost of her schemes weighed heavily. Clara's words echoed, "You did what you had to." Clara, a mentor to her parents, had guided Emily's strategy, and her loyalty was a lifeline. Emily touched her stomach, whispering to Anna, "This is for you." Rachel's flight to Zach was her undoing, and Ethan's desperation was the final nail. Emily Harper sat in her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering testament to the empire she'd fought to reclaim. The golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had thrust her back 3 years to undo the betrayal of her husband Ethan Cole and her best friend Rachel Evans, burned with fierce purpose. Ethan's public humiliation, a leaked video of his affair with Rachel, had stripped him of his role at Harper Tech. Rachel's opportunistic shift to Zach Zane. Evan Zane's playboy half-brother fractured their alliance. The memory of her daughter Anna, murdered by their hands in her past life, fueled Emily's resolve, but the weight of her ruthlessness pressed on her soul. Could she deliver justice without becoming the monster she despised? Ethan's desperation spiraled into madness. Ousted, divorced, and broke, he drowned in alcohol, his once charming face now gaunt and hollow. Emily's surveillance, installed by Uncle Jim, captured his frantic calls to Rachel, who ignored him basking in Zach's wealth in Boston. Driven by obsession, Ethan sought a new target. Clara Voss, Harper Tech's sharp-witted deputy, tipped Emily off. "He's been seen with a shady truck driver, a gambler with debts. He's planning something." Emily's heart raced, her past life's tragedy, her parents' death in a drunk driving accident flashed before her. This time, Ethan's rage wasn't aimed at her parents, but at Zach, whom Rachel clung to as her new lifeline. Emily acted swiftly, contacting Zenith Corp's CEO, Evan Zane, whose trust she'd earned through their contract talks. She shared the evidence over coffee in a quiet Manhattan cafe, her voice steady. "Ethan's targeting Zach. He's unhinged." Evan's calm demeanor hid a storm. Zach, though a reckless half-brother, was family. "Let karma handle it," he said, his eyes sharp. Emily nodded, knowing Evan's influence would ensure justice. Days later, a tragic report hit the news. Zach died in a Boston crash, an oil tanker slamming into his car. The driver, a known gambler, confessed to Ethan's payment. The Zane family reeled. Zach's mother suffered a fatal heart attack, and their patriarch, Mr. Zane, collapsed from a stroke, leaving Evan in complete control of Zenith. Emily seized the moment. Using memories from her past life, she'd reworked Harper Tech's bid for Zenith's contract, crafting a near-perfect proposal. When Harper Tech won, the industry buzzed, calling it a dark horse victory despite the scandal. At a Zenith gala, Emily raised a glass of tea, her pregnancy a quiet strength. "Thank you, Evan, for your trust," she said, her smile modest. Evan downed his whiskey, his gaze steady. "No favors, Emily. Your talent won it." Guilt flickered. She'd altered Ethan's original bid, a move that felt like cheating, but she'd also saved Evan from Zach's schemes, which had poisoned his mother in her first life. That credit she owned. The law moved swiftly. Ethan and the driver were arrested for murder, facing life sentences. Emily's final stroke came through Ethan's mother, Linda Cole, a bitter woman who'd always despised Emily's wealth. Emily sent her an anonymous package, evidence of Rachel's role in Ethan's downfall, including her Boston address. Driven by rage, Linda confronted Rachel at her new apartment wielding scissors in a violent clash. Rachel died in the struggle, and Linda fell down the stairs, resulting in a fatal accident. The news hit Emily like a wave. She'd orchestrated their ruin, but the bloodshed tested her resolve. Clara Voss, her mentor, called her. "You didn't kill them, Emily. Their choices did." Clara's wisdom, forged by mentoring John and Margaret, grounded her. Emily visited Ethan in prison, his eyes blank, his spirit broken. "Your mother killed Rachel," she said, her voice cold. Then she died. "Are you happy now?" Ethan exploded, cursing, slamming his fists against the glass, until guards restrained him. His hatred burned, but Emily's victory was complete. She'd protected Anna, her parents, and Harper Tech. Yet as she left, a tear fell. She'd won, but at what cost? Her heart, once soft, now bore scars. Anna's memory and her parents' pride held her steady. She'd done what was necessary. Emily Harper stood on the balcony of her Upper East Side penthouse, the Manhattan skyline, ablaze with the lights of a city that never slept. 3 years had passed since the golden light of her rebirth, a divine gift that had thrust her back in time to undo the betrayal of her husband, Ethan Cole, and her best friend, Rachel Evans. Their treachery, pushing Emily and her daughter Anna off a skyscraper in her past life, had been avenged. Ethan languished in prison, convicted of murder, and Rachel, along with Ethan's mother, Linda, had met violent ends in a clash, fueled by greed and rage. Harper Tech, her family's empire, was secure, but the scars of her ruthless journey lingered. Could she find peace after dancing with darkness? Under Emily's leadership, Harper Tech had soared, becoming Zenith Corp's most vital partner. Her victory in securing Zenith's contract using past life knowledge to outmaneuver competitors had cemented her reputation as a formidable CEO. The industry hailed her as a visionary, unaware of the divine intervention that had guided her. Her parents, John and Margaret Harper, now retired, traveled the world with Anna born healthy in this timeline. Unlike Ethan's son with Rachel in her past life, a child who never existed here, Anna was Emily's light, her laughter a daily reminder of why she'd fought. At 4 years old, Anna's bright eyes mirrored Margaret's, and her curiosity echoed John's, tying the family together in joy. Emily's heart swelled at the thought of her parents' happiness. In her first life, her defiance, marrying Ethan against their wishes, had strained their bond, leading to their deaths in a drunk driving accident she now knew was unrelated to Ethan's schemes. She'd saved them this time, rebuilding their trust over candlelit dinners at their Long Island estate. John, once stern, now beamed at Anna's antics, while Margaret, ever nurturing, sent Emily photos from their travels: Paris, Tokyo, Rome. Margaret said, "We're living for her," her voice warm over a video call. Emily's guilt, once a sharp blade, had softened, but the cost of her revenge lingered. She'd become a strategist, her heart hardened by necessity. Uncle Jim, the family driver who'd sensed Ethan's deceit from the start, had retired early, his pension doubled by Emily's gratitude. "You were always more than a driver," she'd told him, her eyes misty. Jim's rare smile, a crack in his stoic facade, had warmed her. He'd said, "You did well, kid," now enjoying a quiet life in upstate New York. Clara Voss, Harper Tech's deputy and her parents' mentor, remained a steadfast ally, her sharp wit guiding Emily through corporate battles. Clara had said that "You've got your father's fire and your mother's heart" at a board meeting, her gray eyes proud. Their support anchored Emily, but the question of who she'd become haunted her. Was she still the woman who'd loved freely, or had revenge reshaped her? A new chapter beckoned on New Year's Eve when Evan Zane, Zenith's CEO, called. "Emily, want to go on a date?" His voice was warm, a hint of mischief in his tone. Emily laughed, surprised by the flutter in her chest. Evan had been a key ally, and his trust had been earned when she'd warned him of Zach's schemes, saving him from a poisoned fate in her past life. Their shared victories, Zenith's contract, Zach's downfall, had built a bond, his steady presence contrasting Ethan's deceit. "Yes," she said, her smile genuine. Evan picked her up in a sleek Tesla, driving to Boston's Charles River Esplanade, where fireworks were set to light the sky. The night was crisp, the river reflecting the city's glow. In a tailored coat, Evan's dark hair catching the light cupped Emily's face, his breath warm against her cheek. He said, "You've changed the game, Emily," and his eyes are sincere, not just for Harper Tech, but for me. His lips brushed her cheek, a soft promise. Above them, fireworks exploded, light petals raining down in reds, blues, and golds. The spectacle dazzled, a cascade of color, painting the heavens like a dream. Emily's heart scarred, but healing opened to hope. She'd fought for Anna, her parents, her legacy, and won. But the cost her hardened soul remained. As the fireworks faded, Emily reflected on her journey. The golden light had given her a second chance to destroy her enemies and rebuild her life. Anna's laughter, her parents' joy, Evan's warmth, they were her new dawn. She wasn't the naive girl anymore, nor the ruthless avenger. She was Emily Harper, survivor, mother, leader, ready to embrace a future where love could bloom again.